Good morning. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Today, we're having an intimate talk with the priest for the marginalized, the voice of families who experience loss and injustice, here at the forefront. He stands as a living testament for courage and compassion in the face of the nation's deepest wounds. For the poor, the homeless, and the families left behind by drug war victims, he is their anchor in their struggles against life's challenges. How does the work of Father Flavie Villanueva transform grief and injustice into a movement of healing and hope? With us this morning is the 2025 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee, Father Flaviano Antonio Villanueva. Good morning, Father Flavie.
Good morning, Attorney Karen. Thank you for having me here.
Last time we saw each other, Father Flavie, nagkasabay po tayo doon sa cart ng Dubai Airport.
Yeah, I remember
Papunta
that.
po ako sa Hague at ikaw po papunta sa Rome with Congresswoman Laila de Lima.
Yes.
Ano pong ginawa niyo sa Rome at that time?
The congregation where I belong, the Society of Divine Word, is still celebrating our 150th year. And the theme that we thought of having was something along the line of being a witness of the light amidst the wounds in the world. So sabi ko, and I suggested strongly that who other than, I think, Senator, then Congresswoman de Lima, would be the best person to talk about wounds and witnessing to the light, considering the many years that she suffered in detention. So
Kaya po kayo magkasama because
kami.
si Congresswoman Laila de Lima was
Our
going
guest
to Rome.
speaker for that event.
Okay. Close po ba kayo ni Congresswoman Laila?
I journeyed with her. I didn't know her at the beginning from Adam, and that is what I told her when I first met her in prison na. Sinama ako ni Father Robert Reyes, and I told her that I do not know you from Adam, but I'm here, knowing that you are persecuted by no less than the butcher, and I too have been receiving threats. So you could expect and rely on me to journey with you, and of which I did. Every Sunday, or at least 2 Sundays a month, we would take turns to celebrate Mass and gather as a community, not only to pray, but to reflect on how the times are affecting and what would be the best response.
And the reason why we're having you here today is because just last Sunday, you were awarded the Ramon Magsaysay Award, which is the equivalent of Asia's Nobel Peace Prize. Congratulations,
Salamat
Father
po.
Flavie.
Salamat, thank you.
Para sa inyo po, ano ang ibig sabihin nitong recognition na ito?
Wow, parang thesis ang tanong mo, no? Ibig sabihin siguro ay the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation o Awards Foundation have recognized that not only the work of someone, but I believe that they recognize that there is a problem, but these problems are also being responded to by people, by organizations that stand as voices, as a bridge of hope, and that's where the greatness of spirit comes in. It's a beautiful dictum of the foundation that the greatness of spirit is something that overshadows whatever issue, ills, and problems that society has. So what does it mean? The greatness of spirit is not only in one person, just like that. This is what I've been saying, that although they have recognized my work, and I'm happy that they recognize the work more than the person.
What work are you talking about po? Did they elaborate what you are being recognized for?
Yes, I believe they would like to focus on the two programs that we have initiated from 2015 until today. In 2015, we started what we now know as Arnold Janssen Kalinga Center. This is a program specifically to help recreate and empower the lives of the homeless people. And then in 2016, when the butchering and the murder and the bloodbath took place, we started a program known as Paghilom. It is to provide healing for the widows, orphans, and their families left behind or victimized by the war on drugs. So these are the two programs that then until today have been moving forward to help recreate and empower lives.
Okay. And bakit niyo po naisip yung concept na paghilom, which is to provide comfort for families left behind by EJK victims? Bakit hindi niyo po naisip na like something to do with preventing drug use or rehabilitation for drug users to prevent them from being victims of EJK?
Yes. 2-3 points on that, Attorney Karen. First would be, we did. Actually, in front of Catholic Trade building is Sanlakbay. It's a building that is managed by Father Bobby de la Cruz, which is the one responsible for the community drug-based rehab of the Archdiocese of Manila. So it is that office and that mission that responds to drug problems. So we organize ourselves in communities and provide that community drug-based therapy for drug dependents. But as the number of killings just increased by the hour, sabi ko kay Father Bobby, pare, I've been doing drugs and I've been doing drug rehab for years. Ikaw na muna dyan. I would like to focus on the victims. Because I did realize as early as then that the victims and those who were killed are not at all drug addicts. They were, quote-unquote, as some people call collateral damage. Nadamay lang o dinamay lang. And the second point is, the ones killed are breadwinners. I was orphaned. My father died a year before I entered the seminary. And I saw how my mother struggled as a widow to help provide for my sister and for our own basic daily needs. So I just felt drawn and had to empathize with the widows, even grandmothers. Kasi pinatay ang tatay, the mother felt so overwhelmed, also left, and the children are left alone with a grandmother. So, lola na, nagtatrabaho pa. So, the empathy was so strong. The third would be kind of strategic or even selfish pa nga. If we don't take care of this sector, growing sector, I was afraid that they will also end up in the streets because they lost their breadwinners. If they end up in the streets, pipila din sila sa Kalinga Center. So I was thinking more of a preventive approach that we provide healing, which we have to understand that healing has different aspects and phases. When a widow is able to hold on to one's trauma, then I believe that the person is able to move and rise from the ashes and reclaim once again her life.
So in your advocacies po, do you also help the widows at yung mga naiwang pamilya na makahanap ng trabaho? Or that's
Most
a good, so
cer-
medyo holistic po yung approach ninyo.
Most certainly, we say it's a dignified, systematic, and a holistic approach. That we begin with the trauma, and then from the trauma, we have the psychospiritual interventions for at least 7 to 12 Saturdays. Legal documentation follows, education assistance, capacity building, and then the livelihood and employment takes place. But that comes after when we believe and they claim, kaya ko nang tumayo.
And let's go back po dun sa pagpapanalo nyo ng Ramon Magsaysay Award. How did you find out that you won the award?
Since it's already out in the open, someone called me from the awards and told me first that after a very thorough deliberation and even investigation, they nominated me as the Ramon Magsaysay Awardee for 2025. And the question was, will I accept it? I tried.
Meron po bang magde-decline? That's such a
There were those,
privilege to receive that award. May mga nagde-decline po
I
ba?
think there were those, as I was told. I tried.
You tried to decline it. Why?
I don't feel worthy. Yeah, I
After
mean,
everything that you've done, I mean, after sharing the things that you've done.
well, we did it naman because it is the right thing to do. We did it because it is our mission. We did it because people around us are in need of help. And thus, the award is something that is, I try to shy away from these things, knowing that sometimes it makes life complicated. Not that I'm here
too
feeling
much
complicated,
attention.
too much attention for someone who's been being tailed since 2016 with threats and everything. So, sabi ko, dito lang tayo sa gilid. Let others have that limelight and that accolades. I think let's just do our work quietly. But again, I remember I just had breakfast when that person I consider a friend, a dear friend, told me and explained to me, why do you, just like what you asked, why do you need to say no? We believe and we thoroughly we're convinced that you deserve it, no? And then I remember praying to the Holy Spirit that yung totoong Holy Spirit, hindi yung gawa-gawa na. Sorry to say that. But I felt, so I had to pause for a moment and sabi ko, can I pause for some moments and think and listen to the voice within? And then I said, okay, in behalf of the thousands of homeless that are not recognized, in behalf of the widows and orphans, as well as the great people who have been doing a great work for justice and peace, I will humbly accept this award. But I want to tell you, nagutom ulit ako.
So kumain ka po ulit ng breakfast?
Kumain ulit ako. Sabi ko, when I came back from the table, I had two friends with me. Ano nangyari? Bakit tulala ka? Sabi ko, in time you will know. Sabi ko,
Ayaw nyo agad sabihin.
It was forbidden. Actually,
bawal pala.
Yes. When I received the call, sabi ko, let's just call her Anna. Anna, your BFF is here with me. Wait, I'll say hello to her. Father, please listen first. I want you to stand up, go to a very quiet corner, and I will have to tell you something. At the back of my mind, sabi ko, problema na naman to. May ipatatago na naman siguro sa akin na na nanganganib ang buhay. And then I thought differently. So it was, I was, you call it starstruck, call it dumbfounded, but I felt dwarfed by the announcement, but honored with the invitation.
Well, since you're now in the limelight, hindi nyo na po maiwasan, nandyan ka na, let's talk about your history. So you were before a young professional in the corporate sector, and you also struggled with drug addiction. Can you tell us about that part of your history?
The limelight, the professional, or the addiction.
All.
All in one.
Oo.
I came from a very loving, compassionate, and God-fearing family. So I will never point to that as a reason for indulging into the addiction.
What type of drugs were you
Well, back
using
then,
at then?
that was in
Back
the
then.
this was in the early 80s. So meth was not yet in the market. I remember starting with weed and then elevating to syrup, partly syrup, but it's more of the pills that I got into. That was my choice. That was my poison. But for some reason, even if I was indulging into it, there were also, should you say, catch basins or should you, arrows that would be pointed directly and hitting on me, telling me, you be careful, you have to stop this. This is not the life that you would want to live. And I refer to the fact that my parents brought me to church. So I was active. I was a lector, I was an altar server, and then I was an athlete. I inherited it from my father. I started competing at 7 years old in the swimming and until college sa NCAA. And then I was also a mountaineer.
Okay, so you were very active. I mean, that's quite a
Yes.
contradiction, no? Normally, pag athletic ka, you don't get into drugs because you're always trying to stay healthy and prime for,
Yes.
for competing and all the activities that you want to do.
True, and that's why my coach hated me for that. And also, as a consequence, consequently, I did not excel much. If there were teams A, B, C, I remembered I would be team C or B if I was lucky. But what my goal was, it helped me through college. I got the scholarship that I wanted so as not to burden my parents with it. And the drug intake became more serious when I was already in the corporate, when I was earning my own money. But I remember even when I was in college, I was already teaching swimming. So I was also earning, But it was different when I was earning my own in the corporate. So
at what point po kayo nagkaroon ng turnaround from being a substance abuser?
the Damascus came about during, I hit rock bottom in 1995. I believe it was, the catalyst was the World Youth Day. The World
With
Youth
Pope
Day
John
of Pope
Paul
John Paul in
II,
1995.
yes.
So that was a turning point when, but prior to that, I remember I did cold turkey in a place called Munting Bukal. It's a beautiful, quiet, insignificant place in Tagaytay. And I stayed there for 7 or 9 days. And that's where I felt the withdrawal. It was difficult. But it was liberating. And there's also a story that I realized later on na lang There was a time that I got bored halfway through the days. I asked Ate Lily, the caretaker of the place, is there anywhere else that I could walk? So Ate Lily pointed to a road, narrow road, and said, you follow that road, and then at the end, you will see a big space. Move further, work further, and on the right, you will see a huge chapel. And I did follow. Lo and behold, that chapel was so huge, beautiful, that just brought me to silence. This was in 1990, late 94. And then I didn't realize that in that chapel, in 2006, was the place where I would prostrate and be ordained.
But that time, you made up your mind na magpapari kayo
No.
from being a substance abuser na nag-cold turkey na iniiwasan niyo yung drugs that time, bigla na lang kayong nagkaroon ng parang realization.
The realization came only 3 years after.
3 years after that incident.
Yes, because I right after that cold turkey, I volunteered to become a lay missionary.
So you ended up in a seminary. Tama po ba? Around 1998? Is that
I
the correct
entered
year?
as an associate, a program for late vocations.
So bakit niyo po na-decide bigla na mag-seminaryo? And how did you get over your drug use?
After that cold turkey, and in 1995, I said no. So that was the last time. Although I have to admit that I did relapse when I was in my regency. Regency is a period in between our theology studies, and we're sent out sent out in the world. That's why I count it as a total of almost 15 years dahil nag-relapse ako. That was the last. So the decision was, I went through a series of discernment. I was in the corporate already. I had some love life experience.
Meron din kayong love life.
Oo naman.
Okay.
Oo naman. Huwag na natin pag-usapan, kulang ang oras. But seriously, so I had to discern to marry, to go back to the corporate, to renew my contract as a lay missionary, because I felt the mission for the first time as a lay missionary. Hindi pare, hindi laiko, and being with the people. And the fourth was try the seminary. So all the three is something that is so familiar to me, are so familiar to me already. So there's nothing left but to try the seminary. But the words were, as I mentioned, try.
Try.
Not saying I want to be a priest. Those are clearly two different things.
And yung love life niyo po, at some point, hindi ba kayo napaisip na maging married family man na lang?
That was under discernment until I reached my novitiate.
So you were still thinking about it while being in the seminary?
I was toying because it was a discernment period.
Oo.
No?
Pag ganun po ba, sorry, I'm not familiar with the process. But during that time, pag discernment period, you can still go back to living, what do they call this? A life of solitude and ano ba yung sa mga pagka-track nyo sa priest? Bawal kayo mag-asawa, di ba? So, pwede pa yun magbago. Parang it's still accepted that you can discern within that period what to do.
Yes. I believe so. Ano? Well, even as priests, the discernment and the decision comes on a daily basis. Even now, if, God forbid, if I'm called, if my life as a priest leads others to scandal or to sin, then I will decide to leave, because what am I here for if I'm not able to leave my vows?
Yeah.
So it is a daily discernment and choice. It becomes fundamental for us to follow that directive and that life. So I would be honest that there was this, I was still entertaining. Is this life for me? Or am I called to a different life? I will ask forgiveness from my former ex, and if she accepts, then who knows? Or maybe someone else is waiting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was certain that when I took my vows, there was this voice within me and that conviction that though it was my first vow, I'll do it and embrace it as my last.
And you mentioned that you established the Arnold Jansen Kalinga Center in 2015.
Yes.
This is after you became a priest.
Way
Tama
after.
po ba? Way after
Way
na.
after.
Sino po ba si Arnold Jansen?
Arnold Jansen is a German priest who was also very, should you say, charismatic, quote-unquote, stubborn and fixed on the ways of God, who wanted a missionary congregation in a time when the church was being persecuted in Germany. So despite that, and because of that, his persistence prevailed, and in 1875, established the Society of the Divine Word.
Ah, that's why. Because you joined the Society of Divine Word. Kaya
Yes.
pinangalan niyo itong center after him.
And more so, Attorney Karen he started it in humble beginnings. It was in an old tavern that became our first house. He even didn't have the money to establish the first house of the SVD. And it was in parallel the same with the Arnold Jansen Kalinga Center. I didn't have the money to begin. I had to beg, I had to look for it. So sabi ko, why not? It should be. It's but fitting.
So ngayon po, you're celebrating your 10th year for the Kalinga Center.
Yes, last July 16, 2025.
How are you sustaining the operations of the Kalinga Center?
God provides. Seriously, we rely, we continue to seek help, and we try to be diligent with our reporting, with our transparency. May resibo sa tuwina, hindi katulad sa DPWH. Palagi natin pinakikita kung ano ang ating ginagawa upang ang tumutulong sa atin, whom we call partners in mission, would understand where their money goes. And we have done this practice, and I think it also attracted companies and other organizations
support you.
to support.
At paano po napunta naman sa EJK victims yung advocacy ninyo?
As partly mentioned earlier, 2015 was the time when we were caring for the most marginalized, meaning to say the homeless was not yet given attention to. Actually, tinatakpan natin ang mata natin. Ayaw natin makakita ng homeless people. And when I realized that the victims, and mostly those who were killed, are the breadwinners, that's where my heart felt a strong sense to embrace the same cause. But not without a critic with the question we were already having difficulty sustaining Kalinga Center. We were the only one providing showers and dignified meals. So it was a challenge already to raise the funds. So I was confronted by people, by friends, why enter into this? To think it's bloody, to think it's political.
Yeah.
So my response after bringing it to prayer was, we're not talking about politics here. We're not talking about drugs here. We're talking about human lives being slaughtered. We're talking about human rights that is being trampled we're talking about human persons and their lives being discarded. So, walang usapin politika dapat dito.
Well, Father Flavie, how do you separate the political aspects? Because when you earlier also referred to a butcher, sino po ba yung nire-refer nyo as a butcher?
That's no less than the architect of the killings. That is the former President Rodrigo Duterte and his cohorts.
His cohort. So when you say that he's the architect, ano po yung basis ninyo? Is this something that you've also looked into from an investigative standpoint? Because there are also some allegations that these are killings at the level of policemen who are trying to cover their tracks in relation to their involvement in drugs. So
Yes.
when you make already a judgment, a decision to call the former president as the butcher or the architect, isn't that also a political statement?
It could be. The people would always point to that as someone political. But first, let us look at it in the perspective that the president is what I would always say as the father of the nation. And I believe that as a father of the nation, the father should act accordingly as a father of his children. And some children, true, would be wayward, just as I was. But my question now is killing them the best solution? That's the first. Reprimand them, but do not kill. Second, that was a question also of the ICC. Where did this person come from? Where was this experience? How did this experience come about all of a sudden? Our response to that, and particularly my own, was you have to understand this from the standpoint or the viewpoint when he was a mayor of Davao. And that's when we started looking into that. And true enough, there are unspoken numbers, unspoken deaths in Davao even to this day. And this would be in the memoirs of the late Father Picardal. This would be in the testimonies of Art Las Cañas, Edgar Matubato, and other victims. So we would see that parallelism, that what he did when he was a mayor was somewhat replicated in a national scene when he was president. And talking about the police, I don't think the police would be acting on their own, if not given an order from above. And we've heard specifically those orders. Kill, kill, kill.
You mean sa mga speeches po? Or
Sa mga speeches,
may iba pa po kayong tinutukoy?
Kay the PNP chief Bato de la Rosa was there. Senator Bongo gave some speeches. For short, they emboldened the campaign to kill.
With the confirmation hearing of former President Rodrigo Duterte at the ICC this September, what do you think is the significance of this for the families of EJK victims? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. With the confirmation hearing of former President Rodrigo Duterte at the ICC this September, what do you think is the significance of this for the families of EJK victims?
It plays a very significant role for the families, for the victims, especially when we talk about their process of healing, their quest for justice, their belief that there is still goodwill in the world despite the evil that has beset upon them. It is a very strong affirmation that they are not alone in this struggle. I've always said that healing and justice are synonymous in a sense that justice means when an orphan decides to pursue and persevere in their studies, even with a candle or with a very dim light, when a grandmother would wake up at 2 a.m. to push cart of vegetables and use the proceeds for para sa baon ng mga bata, when a solo parent decides to take on 2-3 jobs so as to provide for the orphans left behind. These are images of justice, images of healing that I believe contribute to their person, including that justice when we talk about courtrooms and movements of people in order to quash that culture of tyranny and impunity.
Father, have you tried to also reach out to mga victims naman of drug use? So for example, yung mga sa pamilya na victims of incest because someone is a drug user in the family, or yung mga napatay naman ng mga drug users. What about that side where the families are also hungry for justice? So with also the culture we have where sometimes the justice system is corrupted by those who have money, those drug dealers. Sila rin yung parang may kulang ng sense of justice siguro pag walang nangyayari dun sa mga na-victimize sa pamilya nila, which might have led to this culture where they find it acceptable na i-eradicate na lang yung mga drug dealers and drug users.
Yes,
have you tried to
yes.
address that side?
Of course, as a dependent myself, after my cold turkey and when I felt that I was more confident to speak and to talk about, to listen, I think since 2001 or even earlier when I was in the corporate, after the corporate, after 1995, I've involved myself in drug rehabilitation and counseling the victims because no one likes drugs. And apart from the drug user, the victims, the families, the siblings, the parents, and more so when a crime is committed, our side would always be on the victims. So I have never closed my doors in reaching out to such people. But then again, I will also be very vocal that drug use or substance abuse is a mental health issue. Thus, the peace and order or a gun and to eradicate the drug addicts by killing them is far from the solution.
Kayo po ba, based on your experience, what was the worst type of drug that you used?
I think there was more of the mogadons that time. And the second would be meth when it became available freely in the market. These two were my drug of choice back then. And if there would be effects, I do not know. Well, I have a heart problem, but I don't know if it would be the drugs. But I think the better question here would be, if a person is able to be healed of his or her addiction, then it just shows there is hope.
So kayo po, based on your experience where you used some of the worst drugs out there like meth, and naka-turn around kayo ng buhay nyo, is that where you're coming from in terms of the sympathy you have for yung sa mga EJK victims?
Most certainly, that these people, the addicts, of course there are levels of addiction, these people they need help more than anything. And a bullet or a gun or killing them more specifically is not the best solution. And to drive another point, not all those who were killed are drug addicts. A lot of them just ended up in the drug watch list. To date, we have around 336 families under the banner of Program Paghilom and growing. There was a time when we were at the 200 mark. I asked the question from all the families in our General Assembly, who among your family members who were killed had drug history? If I would recall, there would be around 128 who said that their loved ones had history with drugs. So you had 128, but you have another number. That would be 72 who didn't have a single drug
So,
history.
nagkamali po ba sa pag-include sa drug watch list?
Nagkamali, inilagay, palit ulo, tinarget lang. So it was a very evil system that they employed in order to inflict fear and use it as one to curtail drugs, considering that most of those who were killed were those in the margins and peripheries.
Well, Father Flavie, paano naman po yung naiiwasan na magkaroon ng mga like false victims or false claimants? Because during the height of shortly after the arrest of former President Duterte, nung mga merong protest about being EJK victims, may mga lumutang din na hindi naman pala victims of EJK yung supposedly sumasama sa ibang mga protests. And later on, umaamin sila na, kasi may mga kapitbahay na nagsasabi, hindi namatay sa EJK yan. Alam namin na yung iba yung kinamatay. So, how do you filter also yung mga that might destroy the credibility of your advocacy?
Well, that's sad, ano? But I haven't probed into that. Ano? It's my first time to hear that, honestly. But it could come in different motivations. It could be a ploy of other people who would like to downplay the credibility of the investigations. It could be also that desire to be part of a organization or a campaign that we too are victims of violence, kahit hindi kami EJK victims. So these things are, we look into the motivations why they are joining and wanting to be part. Because at the end of the day, there might be, and I hope there will be, some reparations for the families affected, just like what happened to the Marcos victims.
And since you're also a priest that is a member of the Society of Divine Word, part of that includes forgiveness. No? Just like Jesus taught us to forgive as His Father forgave. Hindi niyo po ba naisip na yung pag-resolve dito sa issue of EJK could have been done internally, or did you believe that it was necessary na ipadala pa po si former President Duterte sa ICC?
Forgiveness has several steps, ano? We look into the sacrament of reconciliation. Okay, first there has to be that recognition that I have sinned and I am at fault. Second, there has to be this revelation that I am guilty. Third would be reparation. Okay? So this would be the process, the recognition that I'm at fault, the revelation of my faults, and the reparation, how to fix the damage. Why the former president had to be brought to the ICC? Let's just say, and even I quote the good Secretary of Justice, that the past administration had very little capacity or none at all to solve, to fix the problem and the cases of the extrajudicial killings. So meaning to say, if I read the mind of the good Secretary of Justice, walang kapasidad nung una yung gobyerno na tugisin yung mga salarin.
What about this administration,
This
especially since you're
administration-
quoting Secretary Justice Remulla?
Yes. This administration, we have people in the Ethics Committee who are partisan of the former president. We saw in the impeachment of
Vice President?
Still. Feeling ko kasi na-impeach na. Anyway, now Vice President Sara and how they have claimed to be supporters of the former president. So given this, can we really expect a fair trial for the victims? I don't think so. Sadly, I don't think so. But I'm not closing my doors that our judicial system, our nation, and the ills that we have now could still be resolved when each and every one of us, in the words of my good friend Paring Bert Alejo, could begin to do a pambansang dagok sa dibdib. Meaning to say, I have to recognize that I am at fault in all this.
And how do you avoid being a political tool or being politicized? Because at the end of the day, this has become very political, and even the sending of former President Duterte to the ICC has been political in a sense. Because sabi nga ng iba, kung hindi nagka-falling out ang mga Marcoses and Dutertes, that might not have happened. So how do you avoid being dragged into this political scene?
Well, there will always be a thin line between that, I believe. But I will just have to be very firm and conscious that I do this on the talks and on the basis of the sanctity of life and the sacredness of the truth. And when you put this together, you look into the church social teachings where the church preserves justice and peace and harmony and national building. Another point, we look at politics as the best avenue and ground for Christian virtues to blossom, as our Pope Francis dictates. So politics should never be seen as something that is rude, ugly, and depraved. In my own daily living, there has to be a sense of political when I choose what is moral, truth, and good.
Kayo po ba, because of your advocacy, have you been subject of trolls and online bashing? And how do you deal with that? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break at the forefront. We'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Father Flavie, have you been subject to online bashing and trolling? At paano niyo po hinahandle yun?
Yesterday, one of our friends at the RMA called me and said, "Father, I'm calling just to brief you about the mileage, about the media, and how they received your award, and I want you to know that it has been received very well here and abroad, no? But Father, take note also that there were bashers.
So sa ano po to? Sa Ramon Magsaysay
Sa Ramon
Award,
Magsaysay
sabi nila.
Award, ano?
Sa pagka-announce nila, do you mean doon nagkaroon ng mga bashing? Or
I don't know if
saan nila nakita?
pagka-announce
Oo.
or while the news was being spread, ano? And I know very well in Rappler and in ABS-CBN, whenever I would be quoted or be guesting there, nako, katakot-takot yan. And for me, I just have to live with it. And second, if I have become a source to quote-unquote disturb them, hopefully that disturbance could lead them to an open mind and critique themselves na sinasabi to dahil may katotohanan. So, yes, I deal with them with a grain of salt that proclaiming the gospel in the pulpit or in everyday life is not to humor people, but there has to be a sense of disturbing them in order for the purpose of inviting them to embrace the gospel, which is sometimes and a lot of times contrary to what the world dictates.
Wow, kung dapat yan yung marinig ng mga tao, pag binabash, just pray for them.
Pray for
as
them.
learning from you. At
Pero
ano po
yung prayer for them, wag yung yung sana matugis na kayo bukas.
wag naman. Oo. More forgiveness talaga.
Forgiveness,
Oo.
understanding, and an openness to the truth.
What's the worst thing that you received? Nakapakakuha na ba kayo ng death threats?
Yeah, that was something we have for breakfast since 2017, 18, and the worst was when, apart from the letters that I've received, a threat letter has several components: the demands, the consequence, the ano pa bang threat letter. There are several elements of a threat letter.
Pero mukhang sanay na sanay. You're saying it and telling me about this so calmly.
No naman, but I can't forget the time when they went to my mother's house. That for me was the most disturbing, and I had to ask my mother to go to leave the Philippines for some time and
So it was
lay
that
low.
serious.
It became that serious.
Well, Father Flavie, you mentioned kanina yung gusto nyo na magkaroon din ng paghihilom yung bansa natin. So right now, we're facing other issues. Kanina na-mention mo nga yung DPWH, na pa-joke na at least kayo merong resibo, no? But yan yung isa sa malaking hinaharap naman natin yun, yung napakalaking corruption sa infrastructure. And yung very obvious now is flood control dahil lagi na tayong binabaha. So, are you planning to widen your advocacy to also counter corruption? And, you know, because this is the main source for the suffering, yung mga tinutulungan yung homeless. Hindi napupunta yung tulong at pera sa kanila, pati yung kinakailangan na infrastructure para mag-improve yung mga buhay natin.
Well, I don't know about widening. My concern at the moment is I realize that helping widows and orphans does not end with providing them with psycho-spiritual or livelihood capacities, but I learned also that it has got something to do with policy. It has got something to do with the people governing them. So, perhaps if I would choose, I would look into how I could be of influence, a positive influence, even to the lawmakers. If calling their attention is what is needed to do, then I will, and I have done that in the past. So I will perhaps be a voice in the wilderness, a voice to those who could not speak, mirroring to them that this is where we are now. Ito ba talagang gusto nyo? And then perhaps going around and reminding them of our time-cherished values. Lately, I placed a post, sana maibalik natin yung kahalagahan ng salitang hiya. Hiya, that we become not shy, but we we were able to recognize what is right and wrong.
Yeah.
And if we are at fault, have that decency. Kasi kapag hindi natin nakilala yung hiya, nagiging walang hiya tayo.
Ganun na ata po
Ganun na nangyayari ngayon.
Well, how do you gauge the sincerity of this administration in terms of holding accountable even politicians that benefited from these infrastructure projects and right now yung mga anomalous flood control projects?
I've always been hopeful with things. Taking care of we received 350 homeless, providing them with showers, providing them with meals. And I've tried to look at the tiny, minute pockets of hope in this thing. So, naniniwala ako na mayroong mga taong gumagawa, tapat na naninindigan, nag-iisip ng tama at pilit na gumagawa. And
Do you have anyone in mind among the politicians particularly?
baka madagdagan ang threat ko.
Ganun ba? Hindi, at least ipuri naman kung sino palagay mo sincere po na, na talagang trying to get accountability.
I was told with last year that there have been at least 18,000 former PDLs that have been set free, napalaya, and that is through the gallant efforts of Secretary Remulla, Crispin Remulla. On that point, I believe that tama at saludo po dun sa ginawa niyong, I think it's a project, it's a program to decongest and to look into the very painful reality that our sisters and brothers in the penitentiary are struggling with
So
on
yung
a
mga
daily
PDL
basis.
po yung mga nakadetain na pinalaya.
Yes. We're working also on a halfway house so as not to let the PDLs go out in the open immediately.
Opo.
Saluhin natin and we create a center for rehabilitation and renewal.
Okay. Thank you so much, Father Flavie. Naubusan na tayo ng time, but I hope you can also help with calling out for accountability sa corruption issues.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Father Flavie Villanueva. And congratulations for being the 2025 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from the Philippines.
Thank you so much, Atty. Karen, and thank you all.
His tireless work for marginalized communities and families of EJK victims reminds the nation that dignity and justice are never out of reach when one chooses to stand for what is right. Asia's Nobel Peace Prize, the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation trustees could not have chosen a more deserving awardee than Father Flavie Villanueva. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for insights on issues that matter. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.